Well, as billions of dollars of pandemic relief funds continue to flow into state coffers, the demand to know where and how that money will be spent continues to grow. Jason Doyle reports that economic development is a major issue for lawmakers who will send their recommendations on to Governor Stitt on how best to invest those dollars.
The federal government is sending nearly $3.2 billion to Oklahoma over the next few years through the American Recovery Plan Act, or ARPA. The state has direct control of nearly $1.9 billion, while the other portion will be given directly to our 77 counties, the 10 biggest cities, and several other smaller government entities. The Legislative Joint Committee on Pandemic Relief Funding began accepting proposals on October 1st, and the ideas came flowing in.
$1.2 billion. In 5 days, requested through the portal on a soft opening. So $1.87 billion in less than a week. We're gonna get there.
We already have over $1 billion in requests already, and the portal's only been open for 4 days, and so we're going to have a lot more requests than we have money for.
Senator Roger Thompson, who co-chairs the Joint Committee, says lawmakers will be vetting the projects and sending their recommendations to Governor Stitt, who gives final approval.
Water, sewer water, that infrastructure is going to be huge. Broadband is going to be huge for Oklahoma. Just think about broadband. If we get into telemedicine or we get into education, how important that's going to be to all Oklahomans.
There's three things that are killing rural Oklahoma. It's a lack of educational opportunities, a lack of economic opportunities, and a lack of health care. And broadband now, in the day and time that we live in, broadband can help with all three of those. I'm not going to say that it's going to completely solve the exodus of rural Oklahoma, but it certainly will stem the tide if we could get better broadband across the state into rural Oklahoma.
Mike Fina is the executive director of the Oklahoma Municipal League and has worked with lawmakers on rural broadband issues.
I serve on the Oklahoma Rural Broadband Council with the legislature. And so we've been working now for 2 years talking about how do we actually get broadband into rural Oklahoma. And the biggest hurdle has been how do we fund it? And now ARPA has fallen in our lap. And now we actually have a way to start funding some of these projects.
That's why many see the ARPA funds as a means to transform rural areas into economic engines.
I think it's important to recognize that rural economies do function differently than urban economies.
Ponca City Economic Development Authority Executive Director David Myers says his northern Oklahoma municipality is seeking to solve the issues holding economic opportunity back.
The two major issues that we have seen in Ponca City, and I think that's probably true in other Oklahoma rural communities, is supply chain issues, which is something that we've heard quite a bit about. How do our employers who make things get the feedstock that they need to turn that product around? And that's been a very, very significant impact upon our companies. And then the biggest one is workforce.
Myers says one of the keys to solving the workforce issue is improving housing in rural towns.
That is the single biggest reason why we see people leave rural America and go to urban America. It's not a lack of jobs. There's plenty of jobs, but it's very difficult to find appropriate housing. And in areas like Ponca City, where the average age of a house is 54 years right now, that's the average. It cuts down on your housing choices and so forth.
The rural housing issues are impacted by the cost of building new homes and apartments.
And our single biggest need, and we're not quite honestly sure at this point how ARPA could help with this, but is housing. It's very difficult to build housing in rural areas for the simple fact that you build a house for $150 a square foot, but they're only selling for $130 a square foot.
He believes figuring a way for ARPA funds to improve basic infrastructure could lead to a solution.
So anything that we can do to reduce the infrastructure cost in that, the water, the sewer, the roads, and so forth, that can entice people, developers, construction companies, contractors, to help build more housing so that we can fill the open jobs that we have, because we have in Ponca City over 2,000 open jobs.
We're always fighting uphill when it comes to improving the water infrastructure and the wastewater infrastructure in Oklahoma. So this is a prime opportunity, and especially if the state will match some of those infrastructure dollars, for us to make a very significant investment and a step forward for infrastructure all over the entire state.
And those kind of projects are more likely to get the attention of lawmakers.
I would say those are projects that are shelf ready. And so they can come in, this is the plan, we've got the plan before us. Then we'll get that down to working groups and let them take a firm look at it, bring those folks in and interview them.
The Joint Committee will take its time in reviewing the projects and proposals before sending them to the governor. The state has to obligate all the $1.8 billion by the end of 2024 and spend the funds by the end of 2026. Jason Doyle, the Oklahoma News Report.